Hey everyone, and welcome back to BMX News, a weekly BMX news show where I talk about everything that happened in the previous week within the world of BMX that I think you guys might care about. That being said, X Games has been the talk of BMX on the internet for the past couple days, so let's start there. Memes have been going around all over the place, and people have been talking all over the internet about X Games, or M Games as they're showing it in this picture right here, as well as the fact that Matt Hoffman posted on his Instagram page saying that he has had no involvement with this year's X Games. They didn't tell him anything, they didn't include him, they didn't tell him where it was at, or anything like that. You can see his post right here, and I don't know any of the details behind this post other than the fact that it exists, as well as what it says in it. I also don't know any of the details about Matt Hoffman's previous involvement with X Games. It's just not something I've learned about yet, but what it sounds like is that he's been very involved with X Games of the past, and that it's kind of a shock to him to not have been involved this year. It's just kind of what it seems like from the post. People are erupting on the internet about the fact that X Games didn't involve Matt Hoffman and they cut him off and didn't tell him anything, and so many accusations going around and speculation everywhere. His post alone has like 800 something comments on it. It's crazy. And so there's that, and then there's the fact that there's a ton of people talking about how many Monster Energy riders are at this year's X Games, calling it a monster demo or the M Games, and all of the meme pages are posting about this. So I did a little bit of research and put things in a visual format so we can see them. And what I'm going to start with is looking at this year's X Games participants, all of them. So I have all of them on screen right now, because if you guys didn't know, you can just search X Games 2021 participants, and then you can break it down by event as well as all BMX. So to start this crazy in-depth breakdown let's start off by saying that there's 24 total BMX participants at X Games 2021. Of that, 6 of them don't have an energy drink sponsor, 2 of them ride for Rockstar, 3 of them ride for Red Bull, and 13 of them ride for Monster Energy. Now, it's understandable with these numbers why people are losing their minds, because at first glance it's what the heck? When you total that up, more than half of the riders ride for Monster. But then there's a couple things that you might not be considering in this that I've also broken down here as well. So first, let's start with the Olympics. If the Olympics weren't going on, there's 4 riders that could potentially be in X Games that aren't, and all 4 of them don't ride for Monster Energy. So there's that as well. I put a red line on Daniel Dares because he wasn't in the 2019 X Games, but he's been in so many X Games previously, it's fair to assume that he could potentially have been there this year if he wasn't going to the Olympics. So there's that. Then there's these blue lines on this picture as well, and those are showing people who were not in a previous X Games or weren't in the previous X Games in 2019. So 6 people who are in X Games this year were not in the previous X Games, and of those 6, only 1 of them ride for Monster. So what this is basically saying is that all 12 of the other Monster Energy riders previously were in an X Games, and that most of the Rockstar and Red Bull riders were also in previous X Games. So this is something that, if this is a real thing, it has been going on for quite some time now, and maybe people haven't noticed it yet or aren't calling it out as much. But let's keep this going. I even went so far as to break down the 2019 X Games rider list and their energy drink sponsors, and of that, there were a total of 50 riders in the previous X Games, but I omitted 11 of them because Big Air and Vert aren't in this year's X Games, so it's not fair to include those numbers in this conversation. So of those 39 that are left, 10 of them didn't have an energy drink sponsor, 16 of them ride for Monster Energy, 7 of them ride for Rockstar, and 7 of them ride for Red Bull. So when you break it down, it almost does look like there's a discrepancy there going on. And then my mind went a little bit further into this, and maybe there's something behind the fact that maybe Monster Energy just sponsors more BMX riders who are of the style of riding who would be competing at the Olympics. It kind of makes sense, and when you go to Monster's website, there is a giant list of riders who they sponsor, and then you look at the website for Red Bull and their team, they do have a lot of BMX riders on there, but they're not all the kind of people who would be competing at X Games. And honestly, I couldn't even find a list on Rockstar's website of anyone that they sponsor, but It seems like when you think about it, there's a couple big names, but then you think about the fact that they let go people like Ryan Nyquist earlier this year, and maybe there's some kind of discrepancy there in just the amount of people who are sponsored, but it is certainly something worth bringing up whenever you see that Monster Energy sponsors X Games, and then more than half of the lineup of the riders are riding for Monster Energy. But let's go back to the 2021 BMX participants list and take the 4 riders who are going to the Olympics that would have otherwise been at X Games this year and replace 4 of the 6 riders who weren't in the previous X Games. Of those, 2 of them don't have energy drink sponsors, and 2 of them, just for the sake of being generous, are Monster Energy riders. So that brings the total to the riders who don't have energy drink sponsors being 4, Monster being 11, Rockstar being 4, and Red Bull being 5. That means that it would have been 9 Rockstar and Red Bull riders versus 11 Monster Energy riders, and there's still a discrepancy there. So it's kind of interesting when you look at it and you compare to 2019's lineup, this year's lineup, and you just kind of ask the questions, how do people get chosen for the X Games? Marcus Christopher went to the X Games qualifier in the previous one and qualified in first place, but wasn't invited to this year's. I don't know if there was a reason behind that, or if Hoffman not being involved this year had anything to do with that, or if Hoffman's involvement has anything to do with riders being chosen in general, because look at 2019, where apparently he was involved and there was still a giant discrepancy in Monster riders versus all other energy drink and non-energy drink riders in the contest. It was still offset and there was still a discrepancy there. So if you're gonna have a problem with this year's X Games lineup and the amount of Monster riders here, and Hoffman not being involved, you also have to have a problem with the previous lineup because the ratio was just about the same. So all of this comes to the conclusion of maybe it should be put out there how X Games riders are chosen. Maybe there should be some sort of open qualifier. But what I will say is that whenever you oppose something like this and you have the power to offer an alternative, it is great whenever you do that. So Hoffman hasn't put out there that he opposes X Games. He literally just put out there that he wasn't involved. He didn't say anything bad about X Games or anything bad in general. He just put out this as a fact that he wasn't involved, and the internet took it from there. So I think that sometimes it's good to look into these things and ask questions. And there's also the fact that there's the alternative out there of FIS in the UCI events, where literally at FIS, anyone can go and try and qualify. It's hard to get there, but anyone can do it. I don't know much about the qualifying for the previous X Games or how it was run internally, but what I can say about it is the fact that it exists is cool, and it could be a stepping stone to maybe, like FIS, there should be more events throughout the year, and then X Games could be like the championship event of all of the people who qualify or make it, and then they could compete that way, and it could be a more level playing field that way. But regardless of any of that, the question is now out there. How is X Games picking its athletes for BMX? And why are the numbers so skewed towards Monster Energy when Monster Energy is a sponsor of X Games? I'm not trying to make anyone mad about this. The numbers are there, they can be seen, and you can clearly see that the number of Red Bull and Rockstar riders is less than the number of Monster Energy riders by itself. And I don't know if there's a reason for that. Maybe there's a totally reasonable explanation. I actually reached out and haven't heard back yet. But if I do hear back, I will let you guys know, because there could potentially be a very reasonable explanation for this. We just don't know until someone says something. And in all of this, all of these crazy details in this long-winded conversation, I get to the point of, does energy drink sponsor matter if someone deserves to be at the X Games? If someone's level of riding qualifies them for being at the X Games? If all of these riders are deserving of being there and this is how the numbers play out, then I don't personally think it matters. but that's another question that we could be asking in looking at this conversation before we jump to conclusions and freak out. And the whole Hoffman thing is something I wanted to talk about because the entire internet is exploding as if it's destroying X Games and that this is the reason why there's so many more monster riders, but in all reality, there's almost the same ratio of riders from the previous X Games and this one. So I don't think that Hoffman is the one who had anything to do with that, and being upset with X Games for excluding Hoffman should be its own separate thing. And it's very clear from this year's X Games that something is radically different in the entire X Games things, in the fact that it's not an arena, all of the events aren't in the same place, they're in people's backyards or at their compounds where they have their own personal training facility where they're holding X Games this year. And it's going to be interesting to see how things play out for the 2022 X Games and beyond. And I hope at the very least people like Marcus Christopher, who genuinely deserve and earned their spot at X Games, get their spot at the next one. So I'm gonna move on from this insane conversation. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments down below. And if you want to find the full results as well as full replays from this year's X Games, you can find the links for those in the description down below. Let's quickly run through the placings for this year's X Games so far. So for dirt, Ben Wallace got bronze, Bryce Tryon got silver, and Pat Casey won gold. For the BMX best trick on dirt, Andy Buckworth won gold with a double backflip tuck no-hander. Then for park, we had Mike Varga getting bronze, Pat Casey getting silver, and Kevin Peraza winning gold. And then for Dave Mira's BMX Park best trick, Mike Varga won with a 1260, the first ever BMX 1260 on a quarter pipe to wood. That is crazy. That is 3.5 full rotations. So moving on from there, we've got the fact that Ride UK BMX's latest issue 199 is out now, and you can find a general overview on it and order it if you want to in the description down below. There's also the fact that Kink BMX is hiring. Info for that is down there as well. Then there's the Pointer Brothers Park Jam 2021 that is going down August 7th. There's also a Grindworks BMX Street Jam that's going down August 7th as well. So one is in Indiana and one is in Pittsburgh. I figured I would put that out there for anyone kind of in the Ohio surrounding area. And then we have a ton of videos to talk about this week. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I've been sick all week long, and filming that entire X Games part was a struggle. So we're going to just go through the list of videos that you guys should watch from this week. And I'm not going to talk about any of them in depth because I'm sick and I just don't want to. So first, we've got Mike Hoder's fake BMX video from S&M, and if the thumbnail is any indication of how insane this video is going to be, you know you're going to want to watch it. Same with the next one, What a Huckin' video part with Mike Hucker Clark from Demolition. Look at the thumbnail. That's a huge, huge foofa-new. You're gonna want to check this one out. Same with the next one, Joe Battaglia's Colony BMX edit. It's kind of served as his welcome to Colony video as he was added recently. Look at that thumbnail. It's a giant foofa-new. Next up, we've got Matt Ray being welcomed to the Dan's Comp Pro Team, followed by a Marin Rantis Power Hour, and the fact that Laura Lessman is now on Vans Europe. There's a video with that, and she's kind of talking throughout the video. You've got Julie Molina's Welcome to Vans edit. So many people were welcomed to companies this week, and there's been so many good videos. Julie Molina following up his Real BMX video. It's pretty rad. Then for you trail guys, we've got the Caddy Woods 4th of July Jam, followed by the ROM Jam 2021 highlights video. All you need to know about this one is that a dude bar spins off of a vert wall to flat, and it is nuts. And then for anyone who wants an old school video, or mid-school video rather, Jay Miron's 10-pack evolution video from 2004 is up on the Snakebite BMX YouTube channel. From there, we've got one product related thing to talk about. I got an email about this one and I figured I would talk about it. It's the Bike Spin seat post. You may have seen on the Our BMX Clip Instagram page the bike spin tricks that this guy has been doing where, or not bike spin, seat spin tricks that this guy has been doing where he does a trick, spins the seat around. And then there's also the ninja drop where the bike gets spun around by the seat and then drop down from there, as you can see in the thumbnail here. Well, this is an actual product. It's a pivotal seat post that spins around and kind of opens up a whole new crazy world of seat bike spin tricks in the world of BMX. And I figured since they put the effort in to email me about it, I would at least tell you guys about it. And there's a link to a write-up on BMX Union where you can see more information because it's not in English in the description, so you can read about it there if you want to check it out. And we've got a couple interview things to talk about. We've got Travis Hughes' video bike check up on Our BMX's YouTube channel, followed by a very in-depth Vital BMX video interview with Ryan Nyquist. They talk a lot about the Olympics and him being a coach, as well as him riding. They talk about his mountain bike career and if it's over or if he's going to continue with that. And there's some advice straight to Dennis Anderson directly on him being a father and giving him advice for being a father. And then we had two more interview type things. Both were with Bryce Tryon. First was with Monster and it's called Called to Duty. The second was with Woodward and it's called The Road to X Games. And they're kind of both talking about X Games and the road to X Games and things of that nature. So check those out if you guys want to. And as some kind of self promo here, there is a video up from our trail jam we had this past weekend on my YouTube channel. It was literally the best jam we've ever had and the best birthday that I have ever had because it went down on my birthday. If you guys want to check it out, it is on my channel and linked in the description down below. And on that note, let me know your guys' thoughts on this whole X Games craziness, controversy, drama, whatever you want to call it, that has been going on the internet and BMX this week, or anything else this week that I talked about that you guys had thoughts on. And if you're new here or you haven't yet, while you're down there, hit the subscribe button so that we can see you tomorrow for another video. Thank you for watching.